TTC, I'm Dolphignition, but this video is about Inter Miami's final game of the season. Notice how I didn't open up with my eyes covered from a hat? There's proof. Before I get started, I know what you're thinking. A title like this? I can't wait to hear the excuses I have to say about Inter Miami's loss. Rest assured, the Nashville Soccer Club absolutely deserved to win this game, as they were the most fit, most staminizing, and more talented, well-coached team walking out of that game. In fact, the only highlight of watching this game were Nashville's beautifully executed goals. Now on to the things I'll rant about, starting with the coverage. I would have loved to shout out their names on this video if I only knew what their names were, or if any of you watching this video right now knew who the two commentators were for that game. Feel free to write in the comments section of this video. But in all my years of watching soccer coverage from anywhere, let alone coverage of any sport I've ever seen, the two men, this was bar none the very worst coverage I've ever seen on national TV, and those two men that commentated in this game were absolutely horrendous. Now, I'll admit, throughout this game, this has been quite a hard game to cover because Nashville played great, and we played like we didn't deserve to make the playoffs. But these guys didn't show us Inter Miami fans any form of mercy when giving critics. Yes, out of all the teams in MLS, we've opened up with the worst record of 5 losses in a row. Yes, the fact that our first season barely had enough fans in the stands due to the pandemic isn't enough of an excuse to show how below average we've been as a whole for this season. And yes, certainly key players deserved all the criticism. I'll get to that part of later on in this video. But no praise that this was our first season and we made it to the playoffs? No praise on how we got there by making sure majority of our games were 1-point loss differences compared to the other teams we've had to compete against for that 10th spot? No sparing us from some of the shit calls from these god-awful referees in some of our games in our season that pretty much resulted the game in our opponent's favor? You couldn't give at least small hints of credit, and you just had to stay throughout this coverage lambasting us from start to finish? Wow. Fuck you guys. And by the way, Gary Smith talking to his players was heard way more than you guys commentating on this game. Whoever the hell you two wankers were. Even the cameramen, the camera angles, you seem to have focused on Gary Smith's face more than the actual game itself at certain unnecessary points in the game. The next thing I'll go over is the handling of our game. Now, this is my first time watching MLS games, simply because for the sake of Inter Miami, since that's my local team. First off, I've seen that referee, Ismail El-Fath, in one of Inter Miami's previous games before. So the moment I saw that he was going to be our referee for our game, this would immediately spell out doom for us. You didn't even try and use VAR to double check and make sure that if that penalty McCarthy did was really legit or not? You couldn't call it, you just call it immediately and declare it a penalty nonchalantly? How nice! In fucking English Premier League, they would have certainly double-checked that. And more so likely, it would not have deserved to have been a penalty. But that's fine. It's fine. It's a penalty. Fuck it. Let it go. I don't even need to look at the video. Just give it a penalty. Let's move on with this game. Second off, I don't remember what it was. I remember seeing it, but I gotta look back to memorizing it. But Walker Zimmerman got away scot-free with a certain potential yellow card that you never gave him. MLS gets a lot of criticism, and I try to give MLS a chance. But to hear you, of all the referees, getting this year's MLS Referee of the Year makes me sick to my stomach. The worst referee in Premier League, Spanish La Liga, Bundesliga, Italia Serie A, French League, even the league that has Shakhtar Donetsk, is still a better referee than you. And everyone watching this video is welcome to prove that argument wrong. But along with that being criticism of MLS, there's also another criticism I have for this league. It was bad enough we only got 1 extra minute before the first half of the game ended. But in the second half, where we saw so many people on the ground injured and much time wasted away from the clock, there was not 1 second of extra time after 90 minutes? Are you fucking kidding me? This is a joke in the realm of soccer across the planet. We should have at least gotten 2 or 3 extra minutes of time, but for reasons unexplained, it ended at exactly 90 minutes. Is there a rule in MLS that I'm missing or something? But on the glass half full, on that criticism, in an overall bottle most empty, I suppose we should be thankful that we were spared extra minutes of a god-awful performance from my Herons. I thought our game against our first meet against the New York Red Bulls, our meet against Philadelphia, or our game in the MLS's back tournament against New York City Football Club was bad. But this game, our third meet against Nashville, in our first playoff game, digs the cake, as we were bad from start to finish. Going into this game, both Federico and Gonzalo Higuain and Gonzalez Pires were all tested positive for COVID-19, so they didn't play. But Diego Alonso, what were you thinking with this starting lineup? Nealis? Ambrose? Trapp? And then you swap in Ulloa, Pellegrini, Carranza, and Sweat? Agudelo, where the fuck were you? Figal, Powell, and De La Garza. Great defending. Top class. Beautiful. Just fucking beautiful. Keep making hashtag La Familia proud. Hopefully in this off season, defense will improve majorly, because throughout that season, that has been one of our biggest problems in our games, next to our lackluster attack patterns against teams that park the bus when they're leading us. Oh, and John McCarthy. just when I had all hopes for you, you were exactly as I expected going into this game. The awful, awful goalkeeper we all expected to see. You get half of the lion's share of the blame for our loss, not only for that reckless penalty, but for the poorly timed jumps of defending the long-range kicks from Nashville, the missed catch from Figal leading into an unnecessary corner kick for Nashville at that part of the second half, and the fact that you finally caught the ball in the 90th fucking minute marker. You went from being somewhat legit in the first couple of games without Robles to all of a sudden me missing Robles as my goalkeeper more and more. But last, and certainly not least, comes the player who gets the other half, if not 51% of the lion's share of the blame, Blaise Matuidi. Allow me to translate my opinions to you in a language you'll understand. Vous êtes champion du monde. Pourquoi vous jouez? Sorry, let me hold up for a second. Let me see. I gotta really make sure I pronounce this correctly. Vous êtes champion du monde. Pourtant, vous venez cette saison de notre club un boost. J'espère vraiment que les saisons prochaines, vous jouez les Blaise Matuidi que le monde appris à connaître. I don't think I pronounced that correctly. If you want me to I need to work on my French, but to translate that, I'm saying you went from being a champion in the World Cup to a bust coming in to our soccer club overall. Hopefully, when you're still in this club next season, we'll all see the Blaise Matuidi we've all come to know and fear. Yeah. Go ahead. My French is awful. If I pronounce that badly, feel free to help improve me in the comments section. But overall, our overall season has come to an end, and I didn't think we'd go far in the playoffs. I knew we were going to go down sometime, whether it's Nashville or whether it's to Toronto or Philadelphia. We finished this season with 14 losses, 3 ties, and 7 wins, and yet it's strange with that ratio, we still made it to the playoffs. Now, don't get me wrong. For the longest time, a native growing up in South Florida, even though this has been quite a disastrous season, I myself and the rest of the people in this area have long awaited for a soccer club here in South Florida, especially since in our area we have a mixture of Peruvians, Argentinians, Colombians, Haitians, Jamaicans, and some hints of Brazilian. And I am thankful for David Beckham to have invested in making this team. I really, really love both our colors, pink, black, and white, our nickname, the Herons, our logo, I don't know about the rest of the world, but I find it quite sexy, and the location. I actually live pretty close to what was formerly Lockhart Stadium, now Inter Miami Stadium. So just a drive down the street, and I'm there at the game. Sadly, that won't last long, as the actual stadium we'll get is at Miami Freedom Park, which is further south. Further ways south. But what we witnessed was a bad first impression. And like all bad first impressions, they can always be improved. And it starts with our attack patterns. Now don't get me wrong. Pizarro, Morgan, and in somewhat ways, Pellegrini were the only best players in our game. But overall, it seems to be the same over and over again with this team. Either we're trailing the opponent and our chances to get back in the game with a goal aren't good enough, or we're in the lead, but then we lose it all because of a lack of discipline. It happened with DC United, and it's happened to some of our other games. So if we can just control ourselves from getting card after card after card and that's not going to be easy with these bad referees, we should be somewhat better. Our defense was good at the start of the season, but then it went to shit. So that has to be improved. Now, as far as our midfielding goes, that's been our best, but even that still needs a lot of improvement. Morgan and Pizarro can't do everything. Our other team players need to step it up, be more consistent enough to click better with them in order for us to go further. I would argue replacing Agudelo with Ramos could be a start. I mean, seriously, I don't remember the last time Agudelo did anything special except one good goal. Finally, Diego Alonso needs to stop scrambling his brain all over the place and overthinking himself with the player choices and who starts in the game and who sits on the bench to be swapped later in the game. You're the man, Diego Alonso. You're the man that went from getting FC Monterrey to a championship in Liga MX to all of a sudden a deer in the headlights stepping foot into MLS. Hopefully next season you will prove to us that this was just one bad season. You're still that same champion coach in Mexico, and the improvements will occur in the next MLS season. Congratulations to the Nashville Soccer Club, fans of the putrid yellow and indigo navy or whatever that hue of blue is. And honestly, I wish you guys the best of luck against Toronto Football Club. Seriously, nothing would satisfy me and the fans of Inter Miami more than to see that fucker, Richie Laryea, go down after the stunt he pulled against us. But bear in mind that they're going to be a different beast, as when they perform, they look like a top European soccer club. So mistakes are not an option. Missed opportunities are not an option. Shock the world, Nashville. And if it doesn't work out, so be it. But you guys definitely deserved this win. And that's all I have to say for Inter Miami. Go Herons. La Familia represent. And thank God my Dolphins are doing good this season.